Let's get another perspective. Next, we're going to talk with Sean Bond. One of his specialties is reading into the hidden meaning of Mandela Effects. I'm here with my friend Sean Bond. Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Sean Bond. I've started out like everyone else. I've always been interested in science and the nature of reality, and at a young age I had unique psychic activations of different types that anyone can really go through. I've learned how to do it myself.
Okay, well, I have to admit, I'm kind of skeptical of all this myself, because as the CEO of a software technology company, math, science, facts are what I depended on. But my mind has been more open to what the possibilities could be because of this Mandela effect. I couldn't make any sense out of it. So as I've continued to learn these different things, I think our audience would also be fascinated to know what they could learn from your point of view. So let's talk about these Mandela effects in a little bit more detail. Sean, how do you tap into these Mandela effects? I don't understand that. How do you do it?
I can see a stream of information flow into my mind like a dashboard on a computer operating system source code, and it comes up in opening up to the senses that I've applied it to, and I've trained it to get better and better over time as I age, and anyone else can learn how to do this as well.
Really? Very interesting. So, Sean, when you look at your dashboard and you have this information that's flowing to you, what are you reading about the Gilligan Island Mandela effect? What initiated it?
I read that Earth came up with it first, as she needed a way to change the timeline for the better using the media and entertainment industry to change the people that viewed it in their potentials and choice points for the future.
Okay, there's a lot of information you just said there. So you said Earth. What do you mean by Earth? What is Earth related to this in this hologram that we're in?
She is a quantum computer of the utmost highest capability. She is a sentience, alive. She is a jewel of the universe that holds life in a library of all that is within the DNA that she holds and generates. I call her she because she's has a feminine nature. She's like the collective unconscious of all our species, and the awareness that holds back and forward in time, and her perception of this whole game, this whole dream going on forward.
That's really interesting, because you said that Earth is the jewel of the universe. I think that's really special. So we're in a very special place?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Nothing quite like Earth.
So we've got Earth involved, Mandela effects are happening. How is Earth involved with the Mandela effect?
That's a good question. When you're looking towards causation and effect for Mandela effects, besides what science will go into confabulations and the whole concept of misremembering or residual images, confusion, there's also the concepts of timeline merging, timeline change, going into an editor perspective for a story and seeing what you need to have a particular outcome, and if you were in the writing phase of it, you were to see, I was like, oh, this doesn't quite match up with what I want to have the outcome of the future to be. Let me make these little changes here and there, and what is required to make the overall outcome of all the predictive models, of all the choice points, of all the consciousness involved. Beings of high authority would be involved in the causation of the Mandela effect. Anything that really happens on Earth has to have her approval and say so to go forward, and she has quite a bit of awareness forward and backward in time, so she'll be probably the one coming up with the idea in the first place in a lot of scenarios. That's not saying all Mandela effects are caused by Earth, she will have quite a swash of them under her influence, though.
That's interesting. So, timeline changes that are approved by Earth. You talked about editing. It almost reminds me of someone with video editing software having a movie, and they could insert different scenes and change different scenes. Am I thinking along the right type of concept?
And then have the like on one timeline of what you could have a video turn out to be might not have the same effect on the audience that perceives it. So that is a big part of it, to have the optimal equation for the effect, which in this one it's changing the consciousness for a betterment. So.
Okay, so let me ask you an interesting question. So timeline, editing, splicing, etc. Time travel. Okay, so everyone listening has to keep an open mind about this. Is time travel sometimes involved?
Yeah.
So time travel is possible. Keep an open mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, time travel is possible. Time is an illusion, as everything is happening in the now.
All right, so let's bring this back to Gilligan's Island, because I've been finding these really interesting things about Gilligan's Island, and I want to get your input on it. One of the first things that jumps out at me is Gilligan's hat. It went from like a bright white to like a beige tan looking color. So when you look at your dashboard, you know, when the information flows to you, what happened? Why did his hat go from white to tan?
A lot of reasons. It changes it's an indication of the timeline change, so it's to bring out in a symbology that this is timeline A, this is timeline B, or the merging conclusion, Earth going through a period of looking at all the potentials of the wardrobe change, how the actors looked. I'm trying to make it to where you could apply it to other Mandela effects too, but the color change holds information, kind of like if you were to look at an animal or a cat that has a residual image coat that has a color scheme that attracts others of its like-minded species, its like soul, its breeding group, the DNA lineage to move forward to remain in history. It will have a certain amount of information projected off the color that enters a light through the light stream that enters our eyes and is perceived, and will have triggering effects on us and going forward. So though this may be a subtle change, it will do the cumulative butterfly effect for the future of what Earth needed out of all the other colors that she could have picked.
Very interesting. So I'm imagining Earth as a quantum computer going through these color swatches, like I would pick out the color of a new couch in my living room and saying, oh, this beige color will be perfect for the effect that I want. Okay, so talking about colors still, one of the changes had to do with eye color, and they all changed eye color. 6 of the 7 castaways went from having brown or random colored eyes to now 6 of the 7 have green, and only Mr. Howell kept his brown eyes as before. What do you read into this?
I read that the eye color is just what is indicated to us that we can see, besides what's going on in the DNA of the individual. In compare and contrast between the timeline before and after, they went through a DNA change at quite a significant scale. It goes back in changing in their lineage back to introductions in their lineage in Egypt, and then that going and coming in like little chess moves that would affect their overall pooling of DNA of what they became. And it goes into their imagination, their charisma, how it affects people's dreams, imagination, that view them as an audience, and it'll affect the audience in DNA change. It also goes into how the stranded cast members have become even more stranded in metaphor. There's a concept that people can look up as in multiple strands of DNA besides the double helix, which, depending on what faction of awareness you're in, it doesn't matter. It can be used as an operating system to see advancement. That can be seen on the dashboard in energetic extensions of the DNA that holds like light in magnetized wormholes that hold memory and expanded ability to access that memory. And that can be seen as like, most of the cast now that has green eyes has got an upgrade and has more activated silicon energetic stranding, while the millionaire remains back in the double helix in its kind of based consciousness boxing of limitation and greed.
You know, that's interesting too, because I started rewatching episodes. I remember them from when I was a kid. I started watching them again recently. And the actors do seem to have like more charisma. Like Gilligan is more goofy and funny than he was before. And the lessons that each show teach seem to be stronger than they were before. And I kind of notice that people, when you watch somebody that has charisma, you want to start acting like them. You pick up the traits.
Yeah.
Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. Like throughout our history, actors, leaders, throughout time have had varying levels of charisma. These are emitted through the blueprint of their DNA in biophotons, and you can pick up on their level of charisma in each individual, how they got it, what DNA they're exhibiting at the time, their effect they have, their carrying in their voice, their eminence, their actions, and that go into the whole equation of charisma. It affects people greatly. It creates amazing changes in each person that views them timeline to where they get inspiration to want to do it themselves, to want to become similar to Bruce Lee and his martial arts, wake through the world, like bringing cultures together and changing the future exponentially. And to this day, through speed and the force of the dragon.
Interesting. I know a lot of people myself that got into martial arts just from watching Bruce Lee movies. So yeah, he was high charisma. He definitely would inspire people. So that all definitely makes sense. Now, Sean, one of the things you've told me about is this concept called the golden nugget at the top of the pyramid, and how every Mandela effect has this golden nugget at the top of the pyramid. What do you mean when you say that?
Well said. When I say gold nugget at the top here, it's just a metaphor to describe like the treasure at the end of the tunnel, the reward, the thing that anyone that is looking to ask, why should I focus on this aspect of reality or what not? Why is this valuable? If you were to go into investigating each Mandela, each one of them goes into describing a few different gold nuggets behind it. One that is found in most of the timeline change or merging Mandela effects is that there's like a crack or rip in time that doesn't have to be described as negative, that shows that it's possible to change this reality, that there's a certain level of lucidity going on in this dream with the creators of it, and that there's a school involved in that creation where each individual that observes it can enter into that energetic school and learn from the beings that are able to change the timeline and learn how to do it themselves, and then get that piece or grade through each Mandela effect in a progression as they advance forward in that ability.
Okay, so let me just stop you for a second. What would you say the golden nugget of the top of the pyramid is for Gilligan's Island?
So I tune into mostly 3, but then that can be expanded upon within varying degrees of value that then interlink into a web.
Okay, so 3 you've got. So what's the first one?
Yeah, that where you can learn how to better your ability to change and merge timelines to where you're bringing like if you were to view a person anchored in the physical, multidimensional, quantum being that is able to change timelines and bring things that weren't in this timeline into this timeline, such as plants, medicine, things deep in the jungle that are in your unseen, that could cure this and this disease, or animals that were not on this timeline that come, or things that were thought to be existed.
Animals like what I call mandanimals?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Things that weren't thought to even be in the bubble of reality of different perceivers almost at all, and then merging in under the guise of, oh yeah, but these people knew about them, and it's like, whatever. But and then some beings that were thought to be extinct coming back out of extinction, as well as abilities, thoughts, ideas, inventions. It doesn't have to be a physical thing for it to lucidity into the stream, timeline merge, or Mandela into being.
Okay. So is that a combination of all three, or is that the first golden nugget?
Yeah, that's this one.
Okay. So the first one I'm interpreting as just the possibilities are there. So if I boil down everything that you say, watching Gilligan's Island shows you the possibility of this Mandela effect and how it can actually change our reality, and so we can pick up that we can actually do things to change our reality and bring ourselves to a higher timeline. Okay, so what's the second thing that you would read into? The second golden nugget.
Each of the timeline changes, compare and contrast, you will see a difference in the members that are involved in its change and their internal changes, such as the cast members' DNA change. In their DNA change, they're part of an equation to change the future, so they become a flag holder for new, possibly major or fringe changes in DNA to like ahead of the curve that would then make a snow piling effect for everyone that views them in the changes for their DNA. So anyone that views them could go through a spiritual like commerce exchange with them to where they are able to have the same changes and activations that they're going through, and that'd be a gold nugget. Then there's the other one, which is...
Okay, let me stop you for a second. So the second one I would summarize is the possibility of changes that could even affect our DNA. Just like their DNA changed to exhibit different eye colors, there's that type of concept we could somehow apply to ourselves.
Right.
Okay, so what's the third golden nugget?
People's eyes change all the time and different colors. It can mean a deep thing in the reflection of the windows to our soul of our universe.
Okay.
The third one would be the symbolic nature of the show in being compare and contrast in what it was before in timeline to what it is now, which is it is able to archetypally share greater wisdom of the whole of humanity, consciousness of Earth, in symbology and kind of tarot wisdom, where you could look at each episode and figure out, draw a card, like drawing a card for your day, draw from the episodes and learn what lessons you can glean from the show and how it would apply to your life.
So does that mean that every character on Gilligan's Island, and maybe even some of the people that appeared on the island, could all be related to the tarot deck? Is that what you're saying?
In deeply everything is, because it's symbology with everything.
Okay.
Though you could look at the timeline, what it was before and after the merge, and see that the changes to the shows were, some of the episodes especially have a residue of time interaction with them in the change, especially where they have even more wisdom put into them in representation, act, into the script, in things that weren't there before that would just click and make a whole map that somebody could build upon, understanding the nature of reality.
Okay. Okay, you've made my brain expand a little bit. I'm probably going to have to rewatch this part of the interview to pick up some of this information and knowledge, but I think it's really important that, you know, another perspective is shared, like you're bringing to the table. And I want to thank you for that, and different types of knowledge and wisdom you could bring to understanding Mandela effects and what's going on behind the scene of this quantum computer called Earth that we're in, and having this amazing experience. So thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
What do you think about what you've learned so far? If you're like me, you had no idea of how much we can learn from those 7 stranded castaways. Thank you for continuing the conversation. Did you ever expect to learn so much from Gilligan's Island? I certainly didn't. When the Gilligan's Island Mandela effects were first brought to my attention, of his tan hat and green eyes, I thought it would be just like any other Mandela effect, until I decided to dig deeper. And now, here we are, from just one Mandela effect. I learned a lot putting this video together, and I hope you did as well. I want to thank my good friend Sean for his contributions to this effort. So, what's next? If you found this fascinating and would like to keep the conversation going, give this video a thumbs up, and of course, share it with your friends and family. I have some really fascinating ideas for future videos.